good afternoon. Welcome to Kupes Chat. My name is Lady Lorraine. I'm just saying finally we're getting started. It's always a pleasure, and I'm just always excited to be here to be having these conversations. So it is the Kupes Chat hosted by Kupes Young Women's Network, and like I say, if you're here for the very first time, please tell us where you're watching us from, whether it's Mwinilunga, Kasama, it's in Namibia, wherever you're watching us from, please tell us. So welcome to this Kupes Chat. It's an exciting one. I must say I am very excited for today's chat, because the person that we're going to be talking to is one that I hold very, she's like very dear to my heart, and the things that she's been able to do are absolutely amazing, quite phenomenal. I call her my mini trailblazer, because I think she is really a trailblazer. So if you're joining us for the first time, so Kupes Young Women's Network is an organization that focuses on the empowerment of young women, and these are young women from all walks of life, for them to be leaders of their own personal development. We envision a society where young women have a clear understanding of who they are, their self-worth, their capabilities, their purpose, and understand the things of God and why God brought them here on earth. So the Kupes Chat is part of what we call leadership and inspiration seminars, where we bring men and women to come and speak to us. These are women who have done great things, things that may have been deemed impossible to achieve. And the reason we have these conversations, for me, I totally believe in testimony, because if I can tell you I've been through something, you will be able to resonate. So we bring them and they tell us their journeys. Why do we do this? We want to show the young woman possibility. We want to show that young woman who's at university today, who's at just finished high school today, who's sitting somewhere and thinking, can I really do it? And we're saying, yes, you can, because if there are people who have been able to do it, why not you? So that is why we're here today with our Kupes Chat. So at the end, we'll be throwing in a challenge, like I was telling the Kupes girls today that the challenges are back. So make sure when you're tweeting or when you are talking or saying anything or commenting about the chat today, please put the hashtag Kupes Chat 2020. Kupes Chat 2020 is the hashtag, because that will have there'll be something happening a little later. So please make sure that when you tweet, when you comment or you do anything, please put the hashtag Kupes Chat 2020. So we're still in COVID season. Please look after yourselves. It's very important. I know the world seemingly has opened up, but please, we should not be careless simply because the world has somehow opened up. Please wear your mask if you can. Practice social, not even if you can. Please wear a mask when you're in a public place, but also practice social distancing. Continue to wash your hands and to use hand sanitizer. We need each other. I need you. You also need me. So please let us protect each other. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Ruth Mooto. Ruth, in fact, when I was looking at Ruth's profile, I was like, okay, will I be able to remember a lot? So I'm going to point out a few things before she comes. First of all, Ruth, welcome to Kupes Chat.
Thank you so much.
Good to have you.
Good to be here. Always excited to have conversations with you.
I know. I mean, and we have
many
conversations,
yes.
and that's what I like, because I think after we're done, I always feel energized. She gives me energy. When I finish speaking to her, so it's always good to talk to her. So Ruth is a founder for My Perfect Stitch, as well, My Perfect Stitch Home.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a proud, how can I put it, is proud customer of My Perfect Stitch Home, and even My Perfect Stitch. There's one favorite dress that I like.
The happy dress.
The happy dress. Love the happy dress. So I'm going to read quickly. I'm just going to point out a few things that Ruth is. So here we are. In 2016, she established My Perfect Stitch, which is a ready-to-wear and African-inspired, inspiration, and also went into custom-made contemporary furniture, which now I think everybody is, well, not everybody, but at least, a lot of people now are using it, not only companies, but also homes. Mm-hmm. And I'm, like I said, I'm a proud, customer of My Perfect Stitch. Ruth is also a recipient of the Gracia Machel, a New Faces, New Voices Award for Most Emerging Entrepreneur 2017. And she's also an alumni, Bongo Hive's Launch Accelerator program. In 2018, My Perfect Stitch emerged Zambia's Best Newcomer for Global Startup Awards in Southern Africa and showcased their very first runway show or fashion show in Paris, in France, for the Africa Fashion Reception. And finally, this one, I was just like, I was jumping up and about. And finally showcased their unique, colorful furniture to His Royal Highness, the Duke of Sussex, Prince Harry, when he came to visit Zambia through the Bongo Hive, incubator. And she's much more. And like I said, I call her our very own trailblazer. So, Ruth, I don't know whether I should start off with the furniture but then our topic today is Tailored by a Dream. And when we were thinking about it, somebody said, will people understand? I said, well, she will come and explain what we're talking about.
Yeah.
So just quickly, before the furniture and after high school, what happened?
So after high school, I had a gap year. And I always tell people that I've been working since I can't remember.
Really?
Literally, I think all the time I could find an opportunity to do something, I'd always jump at it. So the earliest I can remember was grade 11. At church we had Uncle Rami, and he knew a lot of people in corporate spaces. So he said, instead of you guys just sitting at home during holidays, why don't you actually find something to do? So every holiday he'd get like a list of youths from church, and then he would like take them in different companies. So others would go like to Lusaka Hotel, Kaingo Lodge, or whatever restaurant he would find. And that's how I started working as a cashier. So every holiday, I remember I used to get paid 50,000, then it is 50 kwacha now. And my mom would be like, okay, so make sure you calculate like all your transport from there, because I'm not giving you any transport money. And that money would literally go to my transport, and I'd go back and ask for more. So when I finished grade 12 I was at St. Mary's Secondary School, literally I was like, okay, I finished school, I need to find something to do. So my mom was like, oh, go back to Uncle Rami and ask him. So I went to him, and he found me a job at Kaingo Lodge, and where there's latitude 15 now. Yes. And then I just went, I was like, okay, I'm here, whatever is there, let me do. And I learned how to do hotel linen. Then they moved me to the kitchen, so the chef would show me how you do a plate. Then I moved to the bar, they show me how to do cocktails. And then eventually they put me in the buying section. So we'd go around and then buy everything. And then my mom came and said, they're paying you too little money, because I'd go to work like at 9 in the morning, and then I'd be going back home at 21. My mom would be like, you're working too much. So I said, okay, then find me something else. Then she talked to one of her friends and said, she was Impala service station, there's a pie place at the back. So she said, okay, my girl is leaving, so maybe Ruth can come. So I went and I worked there, I think, for about 8 to 10 months before I went to the University of Zambia. And literally, when I was at university, I was still looking for something to do, because I just couldn't sit still. Something that my husband makes fun of me, says, you can't be a housewife, because like you just want to do something.
You want to do something, yeah.
Yes. So at University of Zambia, I didn't necessarily know what I wanted to do. So my mom just said, just apply anything. And then I applied in humanities, but I couldn't get in, so I applied in humanities and education. So I applied, I got accepted in education. I was really good in maths, so I thought when I got to UNZA, I'll do maths. And then UNZA maths happened, and I said, okay, I'm not as good as I thought. So I changed programs and started doing library and information studies with psychology. I graduated, and then I was still working. I started working with Team Vision Trust in, I think, my 3rd year with Chiwamba Kanyama's Team Vision Trust. And with that, after I finished 4th year, I continued working with him. Then I said, okay, let me see if I can find something else. And then I applied for a government job, so I started working with Ministry of Health as a health information officer. Yes, and then 3 years down the line, I resigned from my government job. Yeah, so
it's been quite the journey. Before we talk about your decision to finally resign, you went into university and thought you were going to do math.
Yes.
And like you said, UNZA math happened.
Yes.
How important is it for one to quickly realize that this should not be? Do you ever think back and perhaps you should have tried to give it a go? Or
I think your instinct, though, like, if something is not for you, you always struggle with it. And I think I've slowly been learning that. Every time there will always be a battle within you, knowing that this is not the place that I'm going to be. Even though I try a little harder, I'm going to be miserable. And that's how I felt about maths, because I hated going to class. I was just like, no, this is not for me. When they give me an assignment, I'll be looking at it and I'm just thinking, this is not the maths Mr. Masiku taught us. It was just, I struggled with it. And I said, no, I don't enjoy it. But I remember during the career guidance, like for first year students, Dr. Folotia came and started speaking about psychology, and she talked about all the possibilities that psychology offered. And as she was speaking, there was this passion that she had, and I was like, I think I belong there. And literally when I went, I applied and I said, I want to do this courses. Even when I was learning, I could apply it to my life. It was something that I looked forward to go into class. So like if I put the distinction between how I felt like when I was in a maths class and how I felt like when I was in a psychology class, it's two different emotions that were there.
Really, yeah? Okay. So you moved in and did that program, went and worked for the Ministry of Health. What happened? How did you finally get to resign? Like to just say, this is it? Because I mean, we all know, everyone right now would, although not really right now, because right now is a very different season. But even then, let's scrape off a few months of 2020. So we're in 2018, 2019, and then Lute decides, I call her Lute, by the way, it comes out a lot. Ruth.
Lute is just fine.
So then you decide that you're going to, to resign. How was it easy? Was it difficult? What sort of conversation did you have to finally get there?
It was easy and difficult, if you can put it like that. So when I was getting married, that was in 2013. I had already gotten my job I was in Luansha Hospital. So my husband was here in Lusaka. And he proposed, I think, August 2012, and then October 2012, I got my job. So when we got married, July 2013, I was in Luansha, he was here. So literally what would happen is Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday at 17 hours when I knock off, I'd get into Dr. Naluta's car. She used to stay in Kitwe from Luansha. And then I would call my Jandu at 12, book myself a ticket, get to Kitwe at 18 hours, get to the 20 hours bus, and then I'll be in Osaka at midnight, 01. My husband would be waiting for me at Intercity. Then we'll drive home. And I was like, I didn't want to have a maid because I was the ambitious wife. So literally.
We're going to talk about that.
Yes. So literally in the morning, I'd make breakfast for him. He goes to work. Then I'd start cleaning the house, and then I'll start prepping food for his week. Then I'll start washing his white shirts. And by 17 hours, I'd be exhausted. So he's coming home. I'm tired from the week, from the commuting, with the chores that I'm doing in the morning. And then Sunday, I would, depending if you want to go to church, but literally I'll be exhausted. At 14 hours, I'd have to be
on the
by
bus.
Intercity, where I travel to get to Luansha. I'll be getting to Luansha at 19-20 hours to sleep to get back to work the next day. So this happened for about 3-4 months. And one of the weekends, I just said, I can't do this. So it's either I start looking for a transfer to come back, or I don't know. And then my husband literally said, you know what, like we've been praying for you to get a transfer to come back to Lusaka, but we haven't asked God what his will is. And literally the next week, my husband got a letter from the office telling him that there was some problem in Dola that he needed to fix. So he had to come to Dola for a few weeks. And later on, his boss just said, no, you have to stay on the copper belt. And we're even laughing about it. And we're saying, literally, we kept on saying, God, this is what I want, this is what I want. But then we never said, let your will be done. And his will was actually that my husband should come to the copper belt. So when he came to the copper belt, we made a decision that we're never going to live apart. So whatever happens, if one of us is moving town, it means the entire family is moving, even though it means it costs one person their job, but our family is never going to stay apart.
So you made the decision collectively?
We made that decision together in the first year of our marriage. So 3 years down the road, then he gets a transfer back to Lusaka. So he comes home, and then we're literally like, we've made a home in Dola, and we're saying this is where we're going to stay. We're considering buying land. Like we enjoy Dola and the peace that it has. And then his boss says, no, you have to go back to Lusaka. So I'm like, you have to go tell your boss that we're okay in dollars. And he's like, okay. So he goes and has a conversation with his boss and says, no, in dollar. Then the boss is like, no, we're actually not asking. So you have to go back because there's a store here that needs you to work it out and everything. And so he comes home and says, I have to report, I think, for the 1st September 2015. And I said, okay. So I went to my boss and I said, we're moving to Lusaka, so I'm going to get leave. And after that, I'll get unpaid leave so that I start looking for a place, but I'm not staying. So she says, okay. And I had very little leave days. So we moved 1st October back to Lusaka. And then few weeks of November, I discovered that I was pregnant with our second child. And literally I said, okay, whatever happens, I'm not going back. Then my leave finished first week of January the following year. And then I'm saying, okay, God, I'm hypertensive when I'm pregnant. I'm hypertensive. But then like when I'm pregnant, it's more prominent. So I'm like, okay, I can't be on a bus because my husband's work schedule is quite hectic. So like he can't be moving. And so we sat down and we looked at it and I said, but remember the decision that we said, that we're never going to live apart. So I can't go back. If it means that your job is going to call you here, I know that I'm really good with my hands. So whatever happens, I will always find something to do, but I'm leaving my job. And he said, you're not serious? I said, I've thought about it. And literally my family is very important to me. So I have to stay here. And I used to have conversations with God. I'll be like, no, but then these are the promises that you've given me. And my marriage is not supposed to be a marriage of 2 different cities. I can't do marriage like that. So this is what you said. You made a good thing, and the good thing is that I have to stay here. So you have to do something about it. And literally we used to have this back and forth, until we said, okay, so you're going to leave your job. Then we said, but we're not going to tell family or any person. So what is going to happen is that you talk to your boss, you send in your resignation letter. After we've all settled and we know we're okay with this decision, then we start telling people. Yeah. And I called my boss and she said, your marriage is quite young and I think that you're making a very good decision. So I think it's okay. And she gave me her blessings. We're very close with my boss. And so she sent the HR person, he came, I signed off everything. And that's how I was jobless.
Well, you're not really jobless, yeah. That's why you left your job. You very interesting when in your conversations, and in fact all the conversations that we have, you do really speak on your conversations with God.
Yes.
How important is that for anyone, especially in decision making?
Yeah.
Because in everything you're like, you literally said like, and you would call me and say, I sat and I just had a conversation with God. How important is that for you?
It's what I've known, watching my mother. My mother literally and God were best friends. And it's something that all the time, whenever I would have a problem at school, she'd just be like, ask the Holy Spirit to help you. If I lose my keys, she'd just be like, ask the Holy Spirit to help you. If I lose my earrings, she'd be like, ask the Holy Spirit to help you. And all the time I would be walking and she'd need something and then she'd be like, God, I'm very thingy with this one. And one interesting thing, after she passed, I found her diary. And like she would write like you're texting your friend. And she'd be like, God, today I met my cousin. And he said he'll come visit me on Thursday and he'll bring me apples. That was like on a Tuesday. And on a Thursday, she put another diary entry and she said, God, can you imagine he didn't come? I guess that's the apples are not coming. And for me, that is the relationship that
Really?
I learned.
Oh,
because
wow.
this is how this woman communicates with God. It means that's how I can also communicate with him. So I go to him about the silliest of things because I honestly believe that God isn't interested in
Everything.
the smallest things as much as he's interested in the biggest things. So it's just, God, I'm confused. God, this boy. And it's what I've learned. That's how my Christian walk has always
Wonderful.
been.
And you know, when you talk about the Holy Spirit, and this is we had a virtual meeting yesterday, and I think from Thursday, every conversation I think has been about the Holy Spirit. And one thing I think I'll probably just remind everyone is that, you know, you have what God has provided for us is there's a map, which happens to be the Bible, so that is your compass for life. So you got your map, and then you've got your guide. Your guide seems, which is the Holy Spirit, who is a comforter, who whispers, who is a gentleman. You know what I mean? So as you walk through life, you need to have both. You need to have a path, your map, which is your compass. And you also need your guide, because then how do you imagine going to a foreign land? In fact, you walk into a foreign land and you have the map, but you don't have a guide. You will get lost. Even if it's going to be what you call these things that we use, Google Map, whatever. Even Google will have a guide. That Kamago is telling you, turn left.
Yes.
Oh wow! And that is how the Holy Spirit and the Bible works. Very interesting. So now, if it hadn't been for the decision to move back, do you think you'd be here today?
No. But I think God is very intentional. Like, he knows where you're supposed to be, and he changes things along the way before you can actually realize that things are going to be like that. I always say that one thing that I've always been sure about is that I always knew I'd be a boss. So like, I always knew that whatever happens, I'll always be in a place of leadership. So even when I was in Ministry of Health, I was going to be director of something. So like, there was no messing around. So it was just like, I'm here, this is where I'm starting my journey from. Eventually, maybe in the next year or two, I'll move to the province. Then maybe after that, I'll move to maybe HQ, or after that, I'll move. I knew already that I was never going to be at the same place for the rest of my life. And it's something that I've carried on. So I'm always learning. I'm always looking at what can I do better? How can I do better? Because for me, I know that there's always supposed to be growth in life. So I think that if I was not going to run my perfect stage, there was still something where I was going to be, but it was still going to be in a place of leadership.
Going to be a place of leadership. So so eventually you move back, and like you said, you told your husband that I am good with my hands, so definitely I will find something
to do.
Did you so how did that journey start? Because sometimes you're thinking, okay, so all I know is office work, and I've been
but
and that's
all. You know what's interesting is that every office person has something that they're good at, which is not office work. And I think it's just that we never put in a lot of attention in that. So growing up, my dad used to bake, so I used to learn like that. So I still bake now. I enjoy doing it. And then in my secondary school, I was very curious with beads. So I'd literally go into the market, and then I'd buy beads, I'd buy twine, and I'd make like all my family members earrings, I'd make my mom necklaces, I'd make my friends like small earrings or necklaces. So like, I'll just be curious. Sometimes I'd buy like a necklace and then I'll break it apart and see. So I always knew that if I put much effort in something, I would know how to work it out. So like, even now, I have no education whatsoever in fashion, I have no education whatsoever in furniture, but then I've been learning, because I always tell myself, if I learn, if I ask questions, I'll be able to get to that. So one of the things that I always was curious about was how to make clothing. And 2014, my birthday, my husband bought me a small machine and said, you've been talking about buying yourself a machine for the longest time. It's always here. So here is the machine, literally. And so I sat down, I was with my friend Leanne, and I was like, okay, let's work this thing out. And it had a manual, and I got a little piece of cloth, and I did sew, and it was a perfect stitch. And I was like, look at this, it's literally perfect. It's a perfect stitch. And that's where the name My Perfect Stitch came from.
Really?
Yes, because like the first time I sat on a machine, I read the manual, I watched the videos, and then I tried to do it myself, and it came out perfect.
Are you telling me that was the very first time that you sat?
Yes, that was the very first time that I sat on a machine. And then I went to YouTube videos. I said, how do I make a skirt? How do I make a dress? How do I make what? I started learning bags. And during my maternity leave, one of my aunties from my husband's side came in, and I was trying to cut something, and she said, you're cutting it very wrong. But I have a friend who teaches how to do this thing, so go to her. So during my first maternity leave, I went and started teaching us how to do bags, how to do what. And then from there, I figured, oh, I can be making a few things. I never thought that it would actually end up be the business that I would start doing. But for me, it was that I'd make a little skirt and I'd post it on my social media. I'm like, oh, guys, this is what I did today. And people started saying, oh, can you make something for me? I'm like, guys, I don't know how to do this. Like, I'm just playing around. And so when I left my job, I was at home, I was pregnant, and doctor's orders are supposed to be resting, so I figured I can't be watching TV the whole day, so why don't I do these things? And that's where my conversations with God would be, because I'd be like, God, I've left my job, so what do I do? And the very first instruction was, how much is in your bag? And I said, I don't know. And he's like, check. So I checked, I had 200 cottons, said, go to Kamala. And I went to Kamala and I remember I bought canvas fabric. And I came back and I started looking on Pinterest for patterns of how to make bags, and I made bags. I posted on my Facebook, and someone tagged me in Zambia Exports. Someone was looking for like my little bags and said, oh, ask Ruth Mooto. And she called me and said, I'm traveling to, I think it was Sweden or something, and I'd like 6 of the bags. And I saw them for like 160 each. And I was thinking I had 200 kwacha. And I saw like 6 by 1, 160 by 6. And the person bought, and I remember I was like, this could actually work. I can buy diapers, I can buy sugar, and I still have money for fuel. Wow. And you know what's interesting is sometimes we start something with high energy, and then things become a little flat. Then we forget what the conversation was with God. And I went into that because like I had people excited about things, and then suddenly it was quiet, nobody was buying anything. And then I went back and I said, but you promised. And literally it's like, how much do you have in your bag again? And I checked, I had a few monies, and they said, go to Kamala. And then I went, I bought bedsheet fabric, and I bought duvet filler, and I started making little baby beddings. And someone came and called me, and she said, I'm just having a baby, and I saw you made some duvets. Can you make one for my baby? Then I said, yes. And she gave me an order and said, I wanted a little bit extra big because I'm not buying the usual standard baby bed. So can you make it in this dimension? Then she's still my client up to now.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
It's been your journey has been very interesting, and I like what you said about God literally telling you to go look in your bag, and you only at that we are thinking it's only 200 kwacha, but out of that, what message would you have to somebody out there who's sitting there and thinking, but I only have a bit, what would I do with it?
Yeah, but then everything that every person has started from one little thing. Do not despise humble beginnings. And most of the times people see, like now people see where my perfect stitch is, and they think I can't be able to build a business that big. But the thing is that I started that business when it was just me without any single person. So sometimes we're busy looking for big. Why don't you start with what you have? And sometimes we never talk to people. I always encourage people, ask questions, talk to someone. Even the people that I hire at my office, like I know people, is there something that you're not sure about? Ask me. I will, if I don't know the answer, I will call one of my friends and I'll be like, can you have a sit down with this person? Because a lot of times when you have conversations with someone, they give you ideas like, oh, so I have that little chitenge 2 meters. I can actually make a dress out of it or a top out of it, and I can sell it for 100 kwacha or 200. Then I'll be able to buy 2 more of the chitenges, and from there the principle of multiplication happens.
Okay, so I think what you're saying, and I think we usually have these conversations with the young women, is that start with what you have. It might not be a lot of money, but if it can help you multiply, you'll be amazed at what you can do. Because like you say, one thing that we've seen over time is we live in a microwave society now. It's microwave popcorn where you put it in, it pops in 3 seconds. Yeah. But unfortunately, and I say this, I think we had this conversation earlier, that for as long as the world order remains, a process still remains. You will still have to go through the process, and there's a lot that happens during that process that helps, because that process will prepare you. There's a lot of training in there. There's heartache in there. There's heartbreak. There's so many things that happen through the process. But eventually, when you get to whether it's the eventual landing, then you would have done something. With at least you would have been able to attain something with that process. So now, when my perfect stitch now is going great. Things are happening. Has it all been smooth sailing? Of course
not.
What?
Gosh.
Tell us about that.
You know, I was reading something yesterday, and I think it should have been Facebook. Sheba Thomas shared it, and she said something that I learned from C.S. Lewis, I think.
That's an amazing author. That's right. I love his brain, eh?
Yeah.
Oh, that guy. I just, yeah.
So she said that if you're looking for something that makes you happy, then I don't think Christianity is it. Because a lot of people think that when you become a Christian, then you find happiness, or you find a place that is comfortable, or you find a place that is where there are no storms.
Yeah, so like it's a breeze. We
Yes.
tend to think Christianity, I'll just walk through.
And then that's it. So then like you die and then you go to heaven. But, and especially that I've always believed that my perfect stitch is purpose. So I think like during the conversations with God, even as we were building this Deuteronomy,
You were saying that you've always believed that
my perfect stitch is purpose.
is purpose.
Yes.
Okay.
All the time. And one of the things that I appreciate is because I tell this to people. So when I forget, people come and tell me and say, you can't be talking about such things, because God was very intentional when he was giving you this. And you can't be saying, because a lot of times I find myself complaining and saying, this is hard. I don't understand why I'm working with people and they just can't get what I'm saying. I don't understand why customers don't understand what I'm doing. I don't understand why I try to do this. I do it all the time, but then it's gone wrong. And then I can't explain it to my client because my client trusted me with this thing. And all the time you have this, and then I start complaining, and someone will come in and say, I mean, you should have said no when God was asking you to do this thing. But it has stretched me in ways that I never would have imagined it would. It has stretched my marriage. It has stretched me as a mother. It's something that when it hits you hard, it's a heart. It's like you can feel your heart breaking, because you're like, God, you promised me this. Why are you neglecting me? I remember, I think one of my very first heartaches was 2018. And you know, like sometimes when you believe God, you think that the very great will come just now. And then you forget that God is also a God of process. So you start thinking, you've promised me this, so you're going to give me the $1 billion now. But then God is like, I'm still teaching you a lot of things. And when we first got our office in 2018, we got an office down Katimam Little Road, and I didn't put a lot of things into consideration. So in the second month, I had a problem with my landlord. So we moved in the third month. And when I moved, I was moving to a bigger space, which was double the rent. And I remember I was having conversations with people, and they're like, but you're my perfect stitch, you can afford these things. And then sometimes you start writing on what other people are saying. But then you haven't sat down and actually looked at the books and said, can I really afford? So I had put a trip to go to Dubai in March for a furniture exhibition, and money that I was expecting just didn't come. So my husband had put in every kwacha he had. I had put in every kwacha I had, and we had no money, and I had put a down payment on this house. And my trip was scheduled, I think it was like the 26th of March, and I hadn't paid my rent fully. There were people that we said would co-share the space, also decided not to come through.
Oh, wow.
So the rent was $8,500 per month. And then when I calculated with them, I was going to pay maybe half of it. And I said, okay, this will work. And then they stopped answering calls and everything. So I've already made a promise to this woman, and I've paid her 4-5, like as the agreement. And then I've made notice at the other place. So we've moved, and she's allowed us to come in. So my trip is already here. I already have my ticket and everything, and I'm traveling with no money. So I book my accommodation. I arrive in Dubai, and then they checked the system and said, no, your accommodation was not booked. So if it's not booked online, it means that your accommodation has to be double.
Is that so?
Yes, so I think it was like instead of $45, which was online, it was supposed to be $90 per night. And my budget was on $45. That should cover me for 10 days. And literally, that's the amount of money that I had. And I said, I can't book because my phone on my way there had broke. So I have no phone to book online, and I'm already here. And I said, okay, I'll pay for the night. So I got my tablet and I started checking for other places. I found another place, and the amount of money could only sustain me for like 3 days. So I called my husband and I said, I have no money. I said, I'll organize a few things. And I'm just thinking, I literally have no money. We had no money. We had no food at home. Everything that we had, my husband had literally given me for this trip. He said this trip
How
is
important
very
was
important.
it? Yeah, I was going to ask, how important was that trip for
He
you guys to
said-
have gone to that length?
He said that if you go and you get exposure for this, it will make my perfect stitch very different.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And learning is very important. There were like 136 countries all exhibiting the type of furniture that they make. Their standards were on top. And it says like you have to learn. I was literally in the design talks all the time. The knowledge I learned from that trip, I still use in my business now.
Of course, I'm thinking like after all that sacrifice
Yes.
and to come back and not be able
And
to
yes,
apply
it will
yeah.
it will be fatal. Literally.
Yeah.
And so my trip happened, and I get to a day where we have no money, and it's the last day in this B&B, and I have 5 days extra, and I have no money, and there's nothing happening, and I'm just like, God, I'm in a foreign country.
And I think everyone who's sitting and who's watching right now is probably thinking, really, you went through that?
Yeah.
Yeah, and you're still standing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, I'm in a foreign country.
What
I
kept
have
you
no
together?
money.
Mm.
You have to sort it out. And I remember I packed my bags and I'm walking to the train station. I had bought the ticket for a week, and it was also going to expire, I think, like in 2 months. And I'm asking myself, will I sleep at the train station? What will I do? Like, am I going to be that person, that Zambian girl who is in Dubai to like things, Ruth? And then I think it was just God was like, just book yourself in this hotel. And I booked online the ones for pay at the hotel. So I booked for 5 days. I went to the train. I got to the train. I got to the hotel. And then I remembered someone owed me money. So I called them and I said, hi, that money. And he says, you know, I've been looking for you. I have a 5 pin for you. I said, you're lying. He says, yes, I'm going to deposit it in your account. I said, okay. And I went to the hotel. I reached. He hadn't deposited the money. So I reached and I said, I'll pay cash. Can I just leave my stuff here? And I went to the ATM. I checked. There was no money in the account. I think there was like maybe like 200 kwacha left or something. I was so hungry. I said, God, I'm going to buy myself food. Literally. And I walked into a restaurant and I bought food and I sat in the corner, and that was the last money, and I said, he's going to send the money.
Mm-hmm.
And my design talks were starting, I think, like maybe in an hour and a half. I sat in the restaurant, finished my food, and I sat there. Said, I'm just going to wait. I don't know if he will deposit the money, because he had been telling me he would deposit like for the longest time, and he was never depositing. So there wasn't any guarantee that he was actually going to deposit the money this particular day.
Mm.
So I sat. Then after like 40 minutes, I said, let me go check. I checked, there was still nothing. And then I said, okay, let me go back and sit. I've already bought the food. They're not going to chase me aside for like another maybe 20, 30 minutes. Then I went to check and the money was there.
Oh, wow.
And so I got the money, went and paid for my hotel, and then got up and then went to my design talks. And I had some change, so I bought butter chicken, I remember, and my hotel room had a freezer, so I would get like part of it, and then I bought like a lot of bread, which was cheaper. So in the evening, I'd have like part of it, and I'd eat with my bread, and I'd leave that for the next day. And then the next day, I had it like maybe 3 or 4 days, but it was like the cheapest food with bread. And then I'd have like a bottle of water or Coca-Cola, and that's how I survived my Dubai trip. I came back,
My.
and we still didn't have money for rent. My husband tried to look around, there was still no money. And I'm seated there, and my staff are like, this woman just went to Dubai.
And they're thinking,
And she
they should be
hasn't
here.
paid
But
us.
how were you able to survive that? Because I mean, like I said, we're talking about the knocks in your life.
Yeah.
And like I'm sure you've had episodes and episodes
Like
of
that, yeah.
of things that have happened. Like what has kept you going? How do you survive the storms that come?
I talk to people. I call you. I talk to my friends. I'm really blessed to have really good friends, so they understand the different dynamics of who I am. My husband is amazing. He holds me a lot, in a lot of places of my brokenness, and literally, I think God literally placed all these people around, and then He tops it up. Because by now, I don't know where I would have been if it wasn't for the people that I have and God, literally. So every time I have an issue, I just go and I'm just like, you promised, so I'm here. So let's work this out. And then I'd cry and I'd cry and I'd cry and I'd process. And the thing is that I still have to go to work the next day.
And when you talk about your husband, and I think we did have this conversation, I think it'd be nice for us to sort of like just do a recap on this one. How important is it for somebody like you, so driven? When you I don't know whether it's looking for a partner, 'cause, they look for you.
You're finding each other.
When you're finding each other.
Yeah.
How important is it to have a supportive husband, and how has it been for you? Like, I mean, if you had to tell a young woman right now, because you say he's really, I know for sure that he's extremely supportive, but then out there, somebody who's just starting out, and she's driven, she wants to do all these things. How important it is? I mean, the what sort of partner?
Do you look, or do
whichever way,
do
you know
you
what
accept? So I used to have a boyfriend. I always share this story with my friend. I have a few single friends, and I used to have this boyfriend who would have conversation. I ask a lot of questions, so because I like clarity. It's one of my values. So like, I want to be clear, even though it's a wrong thing. I just want us to both understand that what is happening here is wrong.
And I think we did say that. I said communication is not usually the problem, because we can communicate, and I say this all the time, but it's clarity.
Yes.
So we can say so many things, but if I'm not clear, let's be clear. So I'm glad that you have those
yes. So so we used to talk about the future, how do we want it to be, and everything. And then I remember he said that he wanted to live in a 3-bedroom house, and he wanted to drive one car, and he wanted to have a job, and then he'd get retired, and then that would be it. And then I'd be like, there's nothing more? Then he'd be like, no. Then I said, like, I want to live like in a really big house and maybe have like a few extra houses. I want to travel the world. I want to do all these things. And he says, but why do you want so much? And I said, I don't know. It's just like what I want. I know that there's nothing wrong with having a 3-bedroom house and settling. But then for me, I don't think that's my place of settling. And then he says, no, we can work it out. So I said, okay. Then I started doing, like, when I was explaining at the beginning, I did Shram Bakanyama's book, Business Values of Our Time. I did his indexes for both the books, and would work late nights. So it would be like, we have a deadline and we have to do this and everything. And I remember one of the late nights, I told him that I'm doing this project and everything. And then the first thing he said, I don't understand why you keep chasing these things. Why can't you just be like the rest of us? And I was like, this is what I want to do. Like, I really like this. And for me, I knew that this is going to be a point of pain.
To be a problem.
Yes, because if I say yes and I marry you and I want to do a project for a hotel in somewhere in Thailand, and I have to travel for 3 months, and I have to get something from Brazil, and I have to do this, and you want me to just sit here, then it's going to be an issue. And you can always tell those red flags. I always tell people, have serious conversations. Do you want to have children?
When do you want to have
children? Do you want to study? And of course we evolve, but then you already know the type of person that I want to settle with is ambitious. And obviously as they're evolving, their level of ambition is also going to evolve. Or the person that I'm with is very comfortable. What makes them click is just to be comfortable. And so when I met my husband, I never hid that type of me. Because I'm just like, we have Team Vision conference tomorrow, and I'm in charge of all the speakers, and we have to be at Mulungushi maybe till 2021. He'll be like, okay, I'll drop you off. I'll go to the office, knock off, then I'll come and wait for you. So I never hid that type of life. So even now, when I'm telling him I'm doing a project, it's nothing unfamiliar to him, because he has seen that that is a type of person that I am. Even my dad knew, because I'd always find myself in projects. So my dad would be like, what time are you getting home? I'm like, I'm not sure. He would leave the door open for me. He was like, okay, he would wait maybe till like midnight or 1 o'clock. And the people who I'm working with, I'll tell them, this is who I'm working with on this project. We're working from here, and this is what we're doing. So I always put it there. But then, like, you have to know that this is the type of person that I am.
And also, just before you go on, there's something that we need to really talk about this one, because I think it's a big challenge for young people today. So you saw the red flag, and you knew that if I take a step, is it correct for us to assume, Ruth, that if he mentions marriage, then all of a sudden Ruth will forget everything that she is or wants to be or wants to achieve for that. So how I mean, when you see the red flag, how can one get out?
Before you get married?
Yes, because usually, because you know, like it's and especially if he looks very serious.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, this is it. And then you're having these conversations, and you're saying, but why can't you be the rest of work? So, what makes people settle?
I think,
or compromise?
Thinking that maybe there are no other options meant for you. Thinking that maybe this is the only chance that I have, and I'll never have any other chance. Also having situations where you, Ruth, you are married, you don't understand the pressures that us single girls go through. But
you were once single and you made that decision.
Yes. So it's just having that level of saying, this is what I want for my life. I think a lot of single girls, before they jump the broom, is that you think that life is very different when you jump the broom. What changes that you have a ring on your finger and you become Mrs. Somebody. But then your emotions, your temptations, your ambitions, your dreams, the things that you like, still remain the same. You don't say I do and then tomorrow you become a different person. You are still the same. So if there was something that made you uncomfortable before you were Mrs. Someone, it will still make you uncomfortable when you are Mrs. Someone. Sometimes maybe to even become worse. So if a person is a drunkard before you become Mrs. Someone, he won't change. Things won't change. Just the way I've said these words, there is no difference. That's how
right.
I do is. So you say I do, you make a promise based on the vows that you're saying, but you as a person and the other person don't change. When a person decides they want to change, it's because they want to change, and usually it's for themselves.
For themselves, yes.
They say, I want to become a better person, I want to do this, and I want to do this, and I want to do this. But the person they were before is still the person that they're going to be. And then a lot of time, I think that I've grown a little more in my marriage than before I got married. Because now I am the mother of my house. I'm the wife of the house. I have higher and more responsibilities. So when soap is finished, they come to tell me. So now the responsibilities are much different. And you have to be in a place of comfort to be able to enjoy those responsibilities. So if you have this with the person that you are partnering with, you're not going to be able to enjoy all these responsibilities that come afterwards. And worse off, if you are quite driven, because you are fighting all the battles that the world is offering you. You don't have to fight a battle when you go home. Like, you have to go home and say, let me bake and enjoy cake and watch Teletubbies.
Your home is your sanctuary.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that is quite key. But then I think we compromise a lot and think, I'll have white beddings and I'll have a dog and I'll be happy. No, you'll be happy because you don't have a flaw in a house, but you enjoy the person you live with without a flaw.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Oh wow. That's very deep. So now you talked about being a wife, being a mother, being my perfect stitch home. And I know we've had these conversations, and I think you and I sort of like agreed that you don't exactly how do you survive all these areas? And then Ruth also has to be a friend somewhere.
Yes.
She has to be a relative somewhere.
Yes. My relatives complain.
But then how do you, we can talk about being the mother, being the wife, and being a business owner.
Yeah.
How is that for you?
It's hectic. It's hectic, but I enjoy all of them. So I have to put in a lot of intentionality, in the sense that I've been doing this series with my husband and some friends from church called Raising Future Parents, around how you raise your kids. And it talked about, like, our kids are very intelligent. Most times we don't see that because we're thinking you're just a baby or you're just a child. But they gave an example of, it's not even an example, one of the things they say is that between 0 and 6, a child's success is when they spend a lot of time with your kids. And then between 6 and 12, a child's success is when they spend time with their friends, because now they're starting to realize there's people outside. Oh, John likes me. Mommy, I have a new friend. His name is John. We went to John's house. But between 0 and 6 is when you come back, Daddy, you're home. Come play with me. Daddy, I want to run around. Daddy, come do a puzzle with me. And then I started to realize, like, my kids enjoy me. They don't know what happens when I come to my perfect stage. Why should I come and say I can't play with you because I'm tired? They were not there. Is it their problem that you're tired? They're your kids and they want you. And I've been quite intentional with that and learning the personalities of my kids. Waku, my first, likes to cook, likes to bake. So in my head, I know that I need to have flour in my house. My oven needs to work, because he'll just wake up and he say, Mommy, let's make pancakes. And I have to be available for him. And then when I know that when I come to the office, she was going to tell me that there's no linen or there's no lining or there's no chitenges. And for there, because I enjoy doing my perfect stitch and I'm the boss, they're not going to go to anybody else to ask for those things. How do I ensure that I'm also intentional and I'm there because I want my perfect stitch to grow? And I know that my husband wants to tell me how his day was. So sometimes what we do is I leave my car at the office and I say, pick me up. Because we know that when we're driving home, then we'll be talking and talking. Then the next day he'll drop me off at the office, and that's the time that we are talking together. Sometimes I have late deliveries, and I'll ask, can you take me to my delivery? And then in there we're talking, we're still spending as much time together. So to say that in 24 hours, 8 is for the kids, 8 is for my perfect stitch, and 8 is for my husband. It doesn't work. How do I incorporate? And I've been quite intentional doing that.
So the key word there is intentional. Because what you said is very important. Sometimes we tend to think kids are not a distraction. We create the distraction. And we need to understand, and I think what I've done for myself, for my sanity, is being able to enjoy every area of my life. So like you say, when you're at your my perfect stitch at that time, when you're home, it's time for the kids and the family and the husband. And then wherever you are, it's being able to enjoy. So it's being intentional and realizing your purpose. And I think that is what is very key. So we're at the end. So your last words, what would you tell a young woman out there who's about to start her business and is wondering, where do I even begin from? And what lessons can you give them, like your takeaway lessons?
It's going to be really hard, but you're going to enjoy the process. That's number one. Number two, ask a lot of questions, say a lot of yeses, get to know a lot of people. People have a wealth of knowledge, and just from conversations you learn and get a lot of ideas. And just start with what you have.
And on mentorship?
Get mentors. Knock at people's doors. Ask for
I know you're
coffees.
very good at
Yes, ask for coffees. Like, even though it's accidental, you just bump into someone and say, can I just have a session? And people say yes. And I think a lot of times we don't want to ask because we think the person is going to say no. But I do my shot. I fire my shot at any person and say, may I? Can I?
And really, if you knew, Ruth is very intentional, especially with the coffees and all.
Yeah.
She will call and say, I need to speak to you. So we have almost like a monthly, and very intentional. She just doesn't dream.
Yeah.
And I think that's the message that we probably have to the young people.
You have to be intentional.
You have to
for whatever growth you're going to have. Growth just doesn't come. You have to be very intentional about it.
And we could go on. I always think I wish we could go on and on. My conversations just don't want to stop. And you know, for like I said earlier at the beginning of our conversation, this is to show a young woman out there, to show her possibility,
Yeah.
and for her to believe that she can. What you've spoken about from university, being able to, you didn't care where you're working, you would go into the kitchen, a restaurant, and work. To you know what I mean, to have to
Yeah.
make, to raise transport money and all. But what it was doing for you, it was training you. And for you now, nobody can tell you, you know, like, oh, how do you get around the kitchen, how do you get around this, because you were prepared to do that. And I think that's the message that we have for the young woman out there, is get your hands dirty. Don't be shy to start from here, because that's where we all started from. Nobody just got up and said, oh yeah, Black Atom, it's a miracle, a magic wand has come. It came from somewhere. So Ruth, I would just like to say thank you so much for taking time to be with us this afternoon. And I know a lot of young people out there have learned something, and I know they've taken away something. And one thing that I would like to say is just to be intentional, and I think that's the one thing that has come through. And also purpose, and she's also talked about process. And even if we take back the last conversation that we had at Kupes, it was talking about purpose and process, which means then for each and every one of us, we must understand that there will always be process. There's birth, there's all the stages that you go through, there's maturity, and then all that, but you have to go through that process if you're going to survive this season. So I'd like to say thank you very much for joining us this afternoon for our Kupes chat. It's been amazing. So remember, like I said, if you're going to tweet, please tweet Kupes chat 2020, and like we'll post the challenge a little later on our Facebook page, and all the other social media spaces that we have. It's been a wonderful afternoon. I've learned a lot. I'm excited. And please, what Lute has said, let's communicate. But remember, please be very clear when you communicate, especially when it has everything to do with your life partner, if you're a driven young woman, as Ruth is. So with that said, thank you very much, and we'll see you soon.